Tészti Pelletier Mai Dishki Billigana Bashin, Kimachini Dashache, Billigana Dashanala. Welcome back to Resball. If you're watching on YouTube, you're probably wondering who this guy is. Well, after a nice clean shave, I'm back to talk to you about Tre Johnson, the guard out of the University of Texas, scorer second to none. We're going to dive into a lot of things with the team context and a lot of the background stuff too, because with Tre Johnson, may be the most divisive prospect amongst draft people. Some people think he's too inefficient. Some people think he can't pass. So we're going to get into all that here with Tre Johnson right about now. Earl Richard Johnson III. That's Tre Johnson's complete full name. He's called Tre because he's the third. Earl Richard Johnson III, Tre. It's just like with Trey Murphy. By the way, do stop calling him Trey Murphy the third. Anybody out there who does basketball stuff, he's nicknamed Trey because it's the same thing. He's the third. I forget what his first name is, but it's something else. It's not Trey. His name isn't Trey. Trey's his nickname because he's the third. So Earl Richard Johnson, third, Tre Johnson here. He's a Dallas kid. Went to Lake Highlands High for his sophomore and junior years, 23 points per game as a sophomore, 21 points per game as a junior. He's been cooking up points ever since he came out the womb, pretty much. Goes over to Link Academy for his senior season, where he averages 15.5 points, 3.3 rebounds, 3.6 assists, shoots 39% from three there, and 90.5% from the free throw line. Let's see how that continues once he got to college here at the University of Texas. So, again, diving into his stats from Sports Reference. So Sports Reference, sports-reference.com/CBB is always where I'm going to get all the stats from as well. 19.9 points per game for Tre Johnson this past season at the University of Texas, 3.1 rebounds, 2.7 assists, 0.9 steals, 0.3 blocks per game, and then 1.8 turnovers per game. Shooting splits for Tre Johnson are 44.9% from 2-point range, 39.7% from 3-point range, and then 87.1% from the free throw line. All of this transfers into a true shooting percentage of 55.7%, 3-point attempt rate of 42.7%, and then a free throw attempt rate of 26.5%. All right. I guess we gotta dive into the issues with Tre Johnson. 55.7% is average true shooting percentage. For me, 55% is always average. I mean, this is probably where a lot of people start to have beef with Tre Johnson. I feel like so many draft people this cycle have either been all in on Tre Johnson from the beginning or all out. Yes, he is a jump shot dependent prospect. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but this is where it starts to show up is anytime you see somebody who the 3-point percentage is good, the free throw percentage is good, like in elite territory, and then their true shooting percentage is hovering around 55% or lower. They're either relying on a lot of tough shots inside the 2-point arc or they can't finish very well. And for Tre Johnson, it's more the latter. We'll get into the shot chart here in a little bit. So I understand that's part of the equation. Go look at just the breakdown of the shots to 301 2-point attempts and to 224 3-point attempts. So you can tell he's taking a lot more twos than threes. Again, the 3-pointer attempt rate was 42.7%. That's pretty solid, but still you see there's a healthy diet of mainly mid-range shots is what it's going to be when we look at the shot chart. Other thing I need to cut off at the pass, 16.5% assist percentage to 9.2 turnover rate. Totals on that 90 assists to just 60 turnovers. That is a very good assist to turnover ratio, especially for a guy that's number one scorer, is a freshman coming into a veteran laden Texas team. Think everything that I argued with Jeremiah Fears and magnify that more with Tre Johnson of, hey, it's an 18-year-old, 19-year-old kid coming into a veteran-laden team that also plays in the SEC, and they handed him the keys. They said, you're our primary scorer. We need to rely upon you, and times that by two. If you're unfamiliar with this Texas roster, oh my goodness. Number one, I mean, there were only 3 guys on the squad who averaged 11 or more points per game. There were only 4 guys on the squad that averaged over 9 points per game. And these other guys, Jordan Pope, Tremont Mark, the 2 guys that 11 points per game for Jordan Pope, 10.6. I mean, they didn't really do much else. Neither of them passed that well. Neither of them really rebounded. Not exactly like they're getting a ton of assists. Jordan Pope at least put up threes, 36.4% from 3-point range on 4.7 attempts. Jamon Mark, not so much, 34.6% on 3.6 points per game. And the Texas second leading scorer, 12.3 points per game for Arthur Kaluma on 50.7, 35.9, 78.4%. And again, 1.8 assists, not really a passer. If you're watching this on YouTube, again, just look at this roster. Not a lot of guys here taking pressure off of a Tre Johnson, and this Texas team ended up still making it to the first four of the tournament. They got limited by Xavier in that first four, but they're 19 and 16, playing an incredibly tough SEC. And if you just look at some totals here, Tre took 224 threes. The next closest three-point shooter was Jordan Pope with 165, and then the next closest after him was Tremont Mark with 104. If you look at the two-pointers, Tre took 301 two-pointers. Next closest guy was Arthur Kaluma with 213. So there was almost a 100-shot difference between the two. And points, again, Tre's our leading scorer, 658 points. The next closest guy was Arthur Kaluma with 406. The scoring burden that was placed on Tre, I don't think there was a greater scoring burden on any singular freshman. I don't even think there was that much of a scoring burden on any singular player that we're going to look at here because, man, especially in conference play, Jordan Pope, Arthur Kaluma, they really fell off. And Tremont Mark, I, I don't like to diss on dudes, but my goodness, like that guy's at Houston. I believe he was at Arkansas last year, and then he just came in and laid an egg. If you look at the rest of his stats, it's just, I don't know what happened here. So I circle this all back to two things. Number one, the true shooting percentage. Again, there are a lot of evaluators that are going to be like, he's inefficient. He should be better than that. It's like, look at that team context he was in, where they're like, if you don't score, we're not winning any games. And look at the conference numbers for a lot of these guys. They just didn't take pressure off of Tre, and still he maintained incredible numbers, 19 points per game. Really, he would have been probably 20 points per game if he just had another guy that like consistently took pressure off of him. And before I dive into the measurements and all that too, like look at this conference. So we're starting at the new year pretty much, January 4th, 2025, all the way to the final game in that first four against Xavier on March 19th, 2025. In these 22 final games for Tre Johnson, 20 points per game. Hey, he made it. 3.3 rebounds per game, 2.9 assists, 1 steal, 0.3 blocks, 1.8 turnovers. So the difference is 64 assists to 40 turnovers. And then the shooting splits are 41.6% from 2-point range, 37.3% from 3-point range, and then 88% from that free throw line. And the free throw attempts, I believe, go up because it's 4.9 free throw attempts per game in these final 22, whereas in the regular season, throughout the whole season, it was 4.2. So yeah, it goes up a little bit. Again, fantastic numbers for freshmen to be the leading scorer on a team that's trying to win. Like Jeremiah Fears, though, 8 and 14 in these final 22 games. So didn't always translate to winning, but man, you can't say enough good about what this kid has been able to do. Measurements for Tre Johnson, the other part of like the people that were like, I'm not going to like this guy because he's 6'4". Well, he measured in at 6'4 3/4 without shoes. So he's like 6'5, 6'6" in shoes, 190 pounds, 6'10.25" wingspan. So again, 6'4 3/4 without shoes, that tall, 190.4 pounds, and then 6'10.25" wingspan. So he has a good wingspan. He's solid size for a two guard, which is what he is. He can play the small forward too if you want to, depending on the other personnel. And then 6'10.25" wingspan. So definitely can play the small forward shooting guard. You're all good there. A lot of nice things to look at. And go back one more time to the assist percentage. Again, think about that team context. 90 assists, 60 turnovers, 16.5% assist percentage to just 9.2% turnover rate. And all of this on 29.1% usage. Again, 18-year-old kid, going to be 19 on draft day. Turn over the keys to Texas. Maintains 19 points per game, 20 once conference comes about, 16.5% assist rate, 9.2 turnovers. How hard is it to maintain that level of usage with that low of a turnover rate? Incredibly hard. And I know some people are going to be like, oh, it's because you didn't pass the ball. Get out of here. 90 assists to 60 turnovers. Sure, you want that to be better. Sure, you want him to be more of a creator. But number one, Texas was like, Trey score, don't pass out. And if you look at that Texas team, again, I was listening to Tyler Rucker and Tyler Metcalf, and they were like, which 33% three-point shooter would you rather him pass it out to than instead of score the ball? Which I'm like, it's kind of messed up, but it's not far off from the truth. Again, article with Jordan Pope, Tremont Mark, everybody else, like Caden Shedrick, 8.8 points per game, Chendall Weaver, 6.4, Jason Kent, who, again, was supposed to be a pretty good transfer from Indiana State, 5.6 points per game. And still, he maintained that level of, playmaking and scoring. So kudos to the young man. Let's look at the shot chart. Sure, there are going to be some areas here where it's going to be tough. And you can't discount that because he is reliant on that jumper. And I do think he's a little bit over-reliant on the mid-range shot. But again, why I bring in the context is part of that. There's really not anybody taking pressure off of him at the rim. I mean, him and Arthur Kaluma didn't really run pick and pop, even though it could have been a thing. The other guys, Jordan Pope and Tremont Mark, Chendall Weaver, like they didn't really pull guys away with their 3-point shot. And then he did have to do a lot more of the creation and playmaking too. That's the one thing I forgot to look at. Again, Tre Johnson was 2.7 assists per game. Well, he was pretty close to being the leader because Julian Larry had 2.9 assists per game. And if you look at those totals, Julian Larry got 102 assists and Tre Johnson was second with 90. So in addition to being the mega scoring threat, they were also like, okay, buddy, you kind of have to play point guard, which he has done a little bit in his background. I'm not going to argue for Tre being a point guard, but he has done that at the FIBA level too. So factor all this into your Tre Johnson scouting evaluation before you'd have it in the shot chart. 65 of 176 shots on above the break threes, 36.9%. It's okay. 23 of 42 from the corners, 54.8%. That's fantastic. 66 of 171 in the entire mid-range. That's 38.6%. Put a pin in that. I don't want to talk about it. Just looking at the simple zones. Once we get into the medium zone and find his spots, you're going to see that number is actually misleading. 80 of 50 shots in the paint. That's probably the most concerning part, especially for somebody that you want to argue as a mega scorer. You got to have a runner floater. I don't demand it from too many dudes because it is a niche shot, I think. And you really have to be either primary scorer or basically a lead ball handler for me to demand that you have a runner floater, because that's something that you can get off easily. Also something that you can get in there and draw extra fouls and stuff for. I think Tre needs to work on that part because we saw 55.7%. That probably puts it up in like 56, 57%. If he can just get a consistent runner floater, he'll knock it down. And that probably also helps him kind of draw more fouls because he's then in the paint and people like, close out too hard on him or get in there and get physical with him. And then that's the next trip to the line. So in the paint, again, Tre Johnson, demand runner floater. You got to do something in there because that percentage, 36%, terrible. And then at the rim, 51 of 80 shots, 63.7%. That's okay. That's probably the main area in terms of Tre Johnson's overall shot that you should complain about. Is like, he doesn't finish that well. And especially at the combine, he tested pretty well in terms of like vertical, and he was number one in a lot of the like lane agility and lane running things. But he's not like a VJ Edgecombe where like you watch it in every game, be like, oh my goodness, he just murdered that guy. Or like, whoa, that was super athletic. Tre is more fluid. He's, the boxer, whereas Tre Johnson ain't like a Deontay Wilder, Mike Tyson, where every fight you're like, oh my gosh, look at that power and explosiveness. He's more like a Tyson Fury or a Joe Calzaghe, if you remember Calzaghe, where like you have to know where they're moving, they're fluid, they slip things, and they continue to get their points because they know how to play the game. They know the sweet science of the sport. So that's the thing with Tre Johnson is he has really good functional handle. It's not flashy. You can see he doesn't turn the ball over that much. And another thing of like, I haven't seen too many people complain about Tre Johnson's handle, but if you do complain about it, like get out of here again. You don't see nobody really poking it out. You see him manipulate guys with just basic movements. Simplicity is the key to brilliance, and Tre Johnson's handle is probably one of those things that shows that quote. The great Bruce Lee once said that simplicity is the key to brilliance. I think a lot of Tre Johnson's game is like that too, but he needs to apply that more to getting to the rim. I think this is like a Cade Cunningham instance of like, dude, just drive straight to the rack instead of trying to do your weird like side, perpendicular to the basket. Like you got to drive at it a little bit more. And 80 shots out of the total profile of 525 shots, this teeny amount. If Tre Johnson can improve even like, a couple percentage points at the rim, can get there and convert some of those mid-rangers into shots at the rim, then he becomes a consistent 20-point per game scorer, no doubt, because he has the rest of the arsenal that you want. Advanced mid-range game, really good shooter from three, and then he just has to figure something out in terms of getting to the rack and finishing or drawing more contact. Let's look at these medium zones. Again, if you're looking at this on YouTube, Hunter Salas, Caleb Lover, I'm going to be placing Tre Johnson too, because I factored this three guys as like bucket getters, and they have all been discounted for whatever reason of the idea of being a bucket getter. Kind of backhanded compliment nowadays. Like think Cam Thomas, right? Where everybody's like, oh, you can score, but oh, he's inefficient, but he doesn't pass. A lot of guys that they get that label all of a sudden, like immediately they can't pass and they're inefficient. So that's why I grouped Tre Johnson, Hunter Salas, Caleb Love together. Check out this Tre Johnson breakdown when you go into these medium zones. What did I say? 38. It was 38.6% from the entire mid range. Well, from the left baseline, Tre Johnson was 18 of 44, 40.9%. That's pretty good. Tre Johnson was 27 of 63 from the right baseline, 42.9%. Very good. And then 17 of 40 from the right elbow, 42.5%. He's 40% from everywhere in the mid-range except for the left elbow, which was, number one, the shot he took the least. He only took that 24 times. All the other spots, he took 40 or more shots. And then this one, it's like catastrophic too. 16.7%, 4 of 24. So again, that 38.6%, it looks like, ugh, I don't know if I want him to be somebody who takes a lot of mid-range shots, but there's only one part that's really dragging down the rest of the percentage. Everywhere else is very good. And you can tell like, oh, this is an advanced mid-range shooter that maintains good efficiency. It's just this one area of the court where he does struggle. And when you break it down into these medium zones, you're like, factor in the paint numbers, factor in the rim numbers of getting there more and converting a little bit more. And then that one spot in the mid-range, you're like, okay, now I can see that the handle, the shot, all that stuff, it requires minor tweaks to either, get this guy in a roll to where he's not having to put all these, ridiculous shots all over the place, or like just focus on one or two of these areas and let him continue to thrive everywhere else where he thrives. From 3-point range, 9 of 18 from right corner, 27 of 59. Oof, my goodness, 45.8% from that right wing. 17 of 55 from top of the key, 30.9%. Not so great. 21 of 62 from the left wing, 32.9%, a little below average. And then 14 of 24 from the left corner, 58.3%. Hey, I mean, for me, it screams like, dude, get this guy in an off-ball role. And for me, in the film study that I saw, I'm like, man, if he just gets this guy in like skin downs and curls and put him in somewhat of like a Duncan Robinson type role while also doing some of his on the ball stuff, like you're going to have a really good 3-point shooter, especially somebody who indications are that from the corners, my goodness, he is going to be money. And really it's that left side and the top of the key where he's inefficient. But again, go back to the context, like who's really pulling gravity away from this guy? How many of these are like the end of the shot clock with a hand in his face, all that stuff. And still he has 3 spots where he's elite, 58.3% from left corner, 9 of 18 from right corner, 27 to 59 from the right wing. Like, again, just minor tweaks. You just got to hit from one of those other spots. And probably it's that left wing where you just got to get a little bit better and you're all good. He did take 6 shots like super outside of the area and like the logo shots, I'd like to call them. So it's only 16.7%. That's another thing that drug down the overall percentage. Imagine if he eliminates those or gets even a little bit better on it. Yeah. Again, you can see all of Tre Johnson's game just requires minor tweaks. And when he's on a team where he doesn't have to do every last single thing, my goodness. I mean, imagine him on like San Antonio where they already have Devin Vassell, De'Aaron Fox, and Victor Wembanyama. Like, this guy is going to thrive because all the pressure's off him. And really all he has to do is rely on that jumper. Right? Like, come on, this is an easy sell of a mega scorer who does have a handle, but he can do a lot of things off ball. And that's probably the part where I think Tre Johnson gets the short shrift. Is like, sure, 29.1% usage is a lot, but look at the film again. There are a lot of times where he does stuff coming off ball, coming off pin downs, coming off of curls. You can do a ton of stuff with him off ball. He does not need the ball all the time to dribble, dribble, dribble. He's not a Cam Thomas. Anybody that wants to compare Tre Johnson to Cam Thomas, that's a lazy comparison. It's just more of archetype. And looking at the stats, if you look at the film, no, they do not have similar games. For me, the guy that because I thought about a couple names along the way, but then I look back in the FIBA stats too in 2023. So this is 2 years ago. So this is a U19 team. That normally means it's like 18-year-old kids. But Tre Johnson played on this at 17 in 2023, 18.1 minutes per game. He scored 11.1 points per game, 2.9 rebounds, 2.6 assists, 0.9 steals per game, 0.1 blocks per game, and 0.9 turnovers per game. So 2.6 assists to 0.9 turnovers. Good assist turnover ratio. Again, he's kind of playing point guard for that FIBA U19 in 2023. Shooting splits in that FIBA were 50% from 2, 35.7% from 3, and then 94.1% from the free throw line. If you want the final indicator on what exactly and how elite Tre Johnson's jumper is, at Link Academy, the free throw attempt or the free throw percentage was 90.5%. In 2023, in that FIBA U19 team, his free throw percentage was 94.1%. And then this whole entire year at Texas, it was 87.1%. You do not maintain 90s and high 80s if your jumper is not the best of the best. Like, that just doesn't happen that often. So again, if anybody questioning how good Tre Johnson's jumper is, go do something else. Stop bothering me because it's ridiculously good. So after looking at all these stats and thinking of this, like, okay, this is a guy that is really jumper dependent. A lot of it is in the mid range. I think he's a really good passer. I don't know that I want him to be the number one guy. I don't see that with how he doesn't really get to the free throw line. He's a solid passer, but he ain't like Magic Johnson. He's not out here creating a bunch of other opportunities for other guys. It's not like a Cade Cunningham or Ben Simmons where they were on a really mediocre team that didn't help them out a lot. And then they still were able to like rack up assists and do things to get to the tournament or close to the tournament. But the scoring is still there. And you can't deny how much that helps out and leads towards success, but he needs more help. I thought about Bogdanovic, but I don't still think that's enough. Just because Bogdanovic has been more of like a bench player, and I think Tre has the potential to be more. But Bogdan as well, like ball handler, pretty good assist to turnover guy, not necessarily a creator, but always super reliable. And 1 year did end up being in the top 5, top 3 in 3-point attempts. But I still don't think that's enough because Bogdan isn't like really as mid-range savvy as Tre Johnson is. CJ McCollum is who I came down to. Kind of the forgotten guy since he's gone to the Pelicans, since being injured. I mean, the entire Pelican team got injured anyway. But same thing, a guy that is a mid-range savant, like is just able to pull off so many shots and generate so many buckets using that mid-range shot while still being a very good 3-point shooter and being a solid assist guy, solid playmaker. I do also think you notice I haven't talked about the defense yet because that's the area where I don't think Trey is necessarily bad, but like a CJ, you're like, that's not his calling card. On the plus side, Trey has the wingspan and the size that a CJ does not. On the downside, just because Texas asked Trey to do so much on offense, like the defense suffered. And honestly, man to man, like I don't really have an issue with Trey. I think he gives great effort. I think he gives good focus. Sometimes he can die on screens, but I mean, a lot of young guys do. It's just an off ball stuff. It's like, oh boy, this has a lot of work to do. He gets very lost on off ball stuff. He can check out a lot of times too. But again, to me, this is always like young guy stuff that a lot of guys have. And when you're a mega scorer and you can prove to teams you're reliable to take care of the ball while also scoring at a high volume, or at the very minimum, being a high volume 3-point shooter, high volume jumper guy to take pressure off of the other stars. Like, I don't know the defense is really going to be that necessary, but I do think Trey cares. Final thing on Tre Johnson before we get into the video recommendations from YouTube and stuff. He is super chill. Like, yeah, I don't really go into personality intel unless I know a lot. And with Trey, he is somebody that I do know a lot about. Pretty much only cares about basketball. I wouldn't be surprised if Trey went to Texas because he loves KD. I think that Trey's personality is a lot like KD in that he only cares about basketball and he could care less what you think about him. He could care less what your opinion is. He really has a teeny tiny small circle of people around him. Like I pretty much know it's just his dad, and like I don't really know who else he like trusts or like chills and hangs out with. Basketball obsessed. Like he just loves hoops. That's all he cares about is go out there and hoop. And he is somebody that like you give him whatever team, and he's like, I'm gonna make it work. I might not get along with everybody, but I'm gonna make it work, and I'm gonna play my game, and I'm gonna have fun doing it the whole time. Check out this Jeff Goodman interview from the preseason. It was on November 20th, 2024. Like you get a very good idea of who Tre Johnson is in that interview. He opens up a little bit more. Like I think part of it too is that Trey is very quiet. Like he isn't somebody that's going to open up to everybody. He's not Anthony Edwards, that kind of a guy. He's very reserved, but again, super hoops obsessed. Kristen Peak and Locked On NBA Big Board. I'll give that one too. That's another great interview where you get an idea of who Trey is. It's another one that I keep seeing things of like, no, bad body language or like, oh, I don't think he cares. No, like stop that. Anybody talking about that, it's ridiculous. Sure, maybe the bad body language happened, but I mean, being frustrated at times in that Texas team, having that rough conference schedule, it's okay. And how many times are we going to learn this lesson? Like with Gigi Jackson, remember all those people like burying him for those same things? And it's like, come on, you can't fault a guy for caring and wanting to do better and then becoming frustrated when things aren't working out like they want to. There's a difference between being demonstrative, basically meaning like, I want my way, I'm not getting my way, and I'm gonna pout, versus like, I just want this to be a better situation, or, oh man, I want to win and it's not happening. I think with Trey, that is more of the issue. Is just like, I'm just frustrated that we didn't win as much as I wanted to. Like these things aren't working out. I'm sure everybody that interviews him is going to fall in love with this kid. The Rafael Barlow, also on NBA Big Board, always tells the story of Trey as a sophomore. They were doing some kind of pre-draft workout. So this would have been 2021, 2022, somewhere in there. And it's the off season. NBA draft prospects working out there in Dallas in some gym. And then Trey strolls in, 16-year-old kid, sophomore, just like whatever. And these draft prospects are just doing runs, like one-on-one, first to 11 or whatever. And apparently Trey just like cooked everybody. Rafael, I won't say the names of who was there, but like a 16-year-old Tre Johnson pretty much just murdered everybody there in the runs and one-on-one drills. And now that you've seen him play a full year, it's like, it makes sense. Like that's who he is. I do think also that's one thing. I don't necessarily it hurts him, but one of those players that like in one-on-one situations, one-on-one games, like cooks everybody. sometimes some talent evaluators don't necessarily like that because you're a team player. I don't think so. I think it's a fantastic story, and I would love to know who he cooked there. So if you want to throw those guys' names under the bus, or if you were one of the guys that got cooked by Tre Johnson, come on, just let us know. Lots and lots and lots of great resources for Tre Johnson, starting with NoCeilingsNBA.com and their fantastic season highlights there. Keandre again, Hoop Intellect, shout out No Ceiling, shout out Keandre, Hoop Intellect. Great, great, great video on Tre Johnson and breaking down his game. Cash Iggy, my guy, has almost all of Tre Johnson's games there. If you want to go look at those individually and see all the playmaking, see his gravity and his just natural ability as a scorer. Sublime Basketball, again, another guy that has quite a few Tre Johnson games, a good breakdown of the individual games. And then the Charlotte Hornets have a nice little video of Tre Johnson's media availability there in the Combine 2025 Combine. Really, shout out to the Hornets. Who's ever running that YouTube account? Like, you've been doing a great job. A lot of people will post videos, just like the journalists who are there, but it's always this weird audio quality where there's a lot of background noise and stuff. So, again, shout out to the Hornets and all that they've been able to do. And then the final one here, again, Lockdown NBA Big Board, Tre Johnson interview with Kristen Peak. Definitely check that out. Check out the Jeff Goodman one as well. Really, really, really good insight into the young man. Again, I cannot say enough good about just basketball obsessed Tre Johnson. If you want to make a scorer, if you want somebody who has an elite jumper and is going to open up your offense so much more, you got to be all in on Tre Johnson. Think CJ McCollum, only taller, and hey, probably is going to be more on defense too, just based on that size alone, and we know that he cares. Yeah, thank you so much for listening to us. We will catch you next time. Goodbye.